For 33 years, I cooked Christmas Eve dinner for a family that had slowly stopped coming, and every year I found a new reason to believe the next one would be different. On December 24th, that hope finally died. My name is Evelyn Hart. I was 75, widowed, and living alone in the 2-story brick house on the north side of Chicago, where I had raised my son, Daniel. That morning I woke at 6, as I always did, before the sky had turned from black to gray. My knees hurt when I crossed the cold tile in my faded robe, and the house made its familiar little noises around me, pipes ticking, the old refrigerator humming, the floorboards answering my steps. On the kitchen table lay the list I had written the night before. Standing rib roast, honey-glazed ham, pecan pies, sugar cookies, roasted potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce. I had bought enough food for 6 people. I always bought enough for 6. Daniel, his wife, Melissa, their 2 children, Ethan and Sophie, and me. I had learned long ago that hope was often just another ingredient I kept preparing, year after year, even when nobody ate it. The phone sat in the living room beside a framed photograph from Daniel's wedding. He was smiling beside me, one arm around my shoulders. Melissa stood in her white dress, bright-eyed and beautiful. During the reception, she had leaned close and whispered, "You won't ever be alone again, Evelyn. We're family now." I had believed her. I picked up the phone. Melissa answered on the 3rd call. "What do you want, Evelyn?" Her tone was already irritated. "I just wanted to confirm tonight's dinner. The roast has been cooking since 5, and I made Daniel's favorite cookies." There was a pause, then she sighed. "I told you last year, we're not coming." My fingers tightened around the phone. "But it's Christmas Eve. Ethan and Sophie, they're spending Christmas with my parents. That's where they actually enjoy themselves." I swallowed. "We could still have dinner tomorrow." "No, we can't keep doing this every year. You've had your life. Now we need to live ours." The words landed harder than I expected. "Melissa, they're my grandchildren. And they're perfectly fine without a grandmother who makes everything emotional." I stared at Daniel's wedding photograph. "Can I speak to Daniel?" Another pause. Then his voice came through, flat and tired. "Mom, please, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I just wanted to see my family. You always make things about you. I've spent every Christmas waiting for you. That isn't our fault." My throat tightened. "Daniel, I'm your mother. And I'm a father now. My responsibility is my wife and my kids." He stopped for a second. Then he said the sentence that broke something in me. "Your house feels depressing, Mom. It smells old. It smells like sadness. We don't want the kids growing up around that." I dropped the photograph. The frame struck the kitchen floor and shattered. Daniel kept talking. "You need to understand that we need space. You've done your part. Now it's time to let us live." The call ended. I stood there, holding the phone to my ear while the silence returned. The roast was burning. I turned off the oven and pulled out the pan. The meat was blackened on top. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. For years I had imagined what the final betrayal might feel like. I expected screaming, tears, a dramatic collapse. Instead, I sat on the kitchen floor among the broken glass and felt nothing. Then memories came. Daniel as a feverish child, sleeping against my chest. The student loan I took out so he could finish engineering school, the $50,000 I gave him and Melissa for their condo in Lincoln Park. The afternoons I watched Ethan and Sophie so Melissa could return to work. The countless transfers I made because there was always one more bill, one more emergency, one more reason they needed help. And the Christmases, 33 of them. 33 years of setting an extra place at the table. 33 years of waiting for footsteps that never came. For the first time, I asked myself a question that had nothing to do with them. Why had I allowed this? That night, I lay in the bedroom I had shared with my husband, Thomas, for 22 years. He had died 13 years earlier, and since then, I had treated his old house like a shrine. The ceiling above me had a water stain I had never repaired. There had always been something more important. Daniel needed help. The kids needed school fees. The kids needed summer camp. Daniel needed a better car. Melissa needed money while she stayed home with the children. I had spent years believing that if I sacrificed enough, my family would eventually realize how much I loved them. They didn't. I got out of bed and opened the old metal box where I kept receipts. The papers were yellowing at the edges. February 2010, $80,000. That was the year Daniel had come to my door crying because his consulting company had collapsed. He had signed for a loan he could no longer pay. "Mom, we're going to lose everything," he had said. "Melissa is pregnant. Please." I had mortgaged my house. 2 years, he promised. "I'll pay you back in 2 years." 14 years later, the mortgage still had a balance. Then came 2012, private school, $1,600 a month for both children. My widow's pension was less than $1,000. So I cleaned offices at night. I was 62 years old, climbing stairs with buckets, scrubbing floors while my knees screamed. Every month I transferred the money. Then there were school uniforms, tutors, summer camps, a car, vacation expenses. By the time I finished sorting the receipts, I had given Daniel and his family more than $200,000. I stared at the total. $200,000. Enough for decades of freedom. Enough to repair the roof, enough to travel, enough to have lived. Instead, I had purchased other people's comfort. 8 months earlier, they had visited for 45 minutes. Melissa complained that my furniture looked outdated. She said the house smelled musty. She asked why there was no Wi-Fi upstairs. Daniel barely looked up from his phone. Finally, he had said, "Mom, maybe you should consider assisted living. We'd worry less." Worry less. The sentence made sense now. They didn't want to worry about me. They wanted to stop dealing with me. On December 28th, while I was making tea, my phone buzzed. A message from Melissa. My heart lifted before my mind could stop it. Maybe she was apologizing. Maybe the children missed me. Maybe Christmas had changed something. I opened it. It wasn't meant for me. The first line said, "Don't forget to tell your mother she needs to send the $2,000 for Aspen." I kept reading. Melissa complained that Christmas had cost too much. She said Daniel should remind me that I had plenty saved. Then she wrote that I pretended to be lonely to make them feel guilty. The next line made my hands go cold. She had already researched a nursing home outside the city. It cost about $1,200 a month. "When she dies, we can sell the house," she wrote, "pay for the home from it and keep whatever is left." Then she mentioned the children. She said Ethan didn't care if I went. I read the message 3 times. My tea sat untouched. The phone slipped from my hand. I walked to the mirror in the hallway. A 75-year-old woman stared back at me. Gray hair, wrinkled face, shoulders bent slightly forward. I suddenly realized I had spent years trying to make myself useful so nobody would have a reason to leave me. And they had left anyway. I picked up the phone and called Daniel. He sounded annoyed. "Mom, I'm working. I saw Melissa's message." Silence. "I know about the nursing home. I know about selling my house. I know what you've been telling Ethan." His voice hardened. "You're taking it out of context." "Which part?" "Mom, you're getting older. You live alone. We can't keep managing everything." "Managing what?" "Your care." "No," I said quietly. "You're managing my usefulness." He didn't answer. I continued. "I won't pay for Aspen." "Mom, that's selfish." "Maybe it is." He said something about family. I said, "Family doesn't plan what to do with your mother's house while she's still alive." Then I ended the call. I sat in my husband's old chair. For the first time, I felt no need to defend myself. I called my sister-in-law, Nora, in Denver. We had drifted apart after Thomas died, but I remembered her strength. She listened while I told her everything. When I finished, she said, "Evelyn, you need to leave that house for a few days." "I don't know where to go." "You can come here." I laughed weakly. I haven't flown anywhere in years. Then let this be your first trip. Before I could answer, she said, and stop saying you're all you have. You have yourself. That sentence stayed with me. A few hours later, Daniel called again. This time, his voice was soft. Mom, I'm sorry, I was stressed. He said the message had been misunderstood. He invited me to dinner. It was the first invitation I had received in 8 months. I almost laughed. Instead, I said no. Melissa called next. She claimed she had been talking about someone else's mother-in-law. But when I mentioned the house, she went silent. Then her real voice came back. You need to be realistic, Evelyn. You're 75. You shouldn't be living alone. And you shouldn't be planning my death. We're trying to protect the family. Your family, she sighed. You don't have many years left. Why not let us help? I hung up. At 9 that night, the doorbell rang. Daniel stood outside with Ethan. I opened the door but didn't smile. Ethan looked nervous. Grandma, he said, Dad said you misunderstood everything. I looked at my grandson. Did your mother talk to you about a nursing home? His eyes dropped. She said you'd be happier around older people. Do you think I should go? He shifted his weight. I don't know. Do you want to come here? He hesitated. Honestly, Grandma, I have a game with my friends tonight. He hadn't come because he wanted to see me. He had come because his father asked him to. I nodded. You can go. Before he left, he kissed my cheek quickly. Then he ran down the stairs. I closed the door. The house was silent. But for the first time, silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like space. The next morning I woke at 8:30. I had slept 7 hours. No worrying, no waiting, no planning menus for people who wouldn't come. I showered and put on the blue blouse hanging in my closet. I had bought it a year earlier and never worn it. It was too nice, I had told myself. Too nice for sitting alone at home. That morning I wore it anyway. I ate breakfast at the dining table. I used the good porcelain. I made fresh coffee. I put flowers in a vase. And then I called the bank. I want to cancel all recurring transfers. The clerk confirmed the monthly amount, $1,600. Yes, I said. Cancel every one. I also asked for stronger account protection. At the branch, the manager told me there had recently been a blocked attempt to access my online banking from another device. Do you recognize it? No. She helped me reset everything and activate 2-factor authentication. Then she showed me my mortgage balance, $15,000. I'd like to pay it off. When I signed the final papers, I almost cried. Not because I was losing money, because my house was finally mine, all mine. I walked through the Green City Market on the way home. I bought tomatoes, olives, cheese, fresh bread, steak, flowers, and a bottle of wine. The cashier asked, "How many people?" I smiled. 1. That evening, I cooked a real dinner. I lit a candle. I played music. I poured a glass of wine. No one complained. No one needed anything. For the first time in years, dinner was simply dinner. That afternoon, I went upstairs to Daniel's old bedroom. I hadn't touched it in years. His baseball trophies still stood on the shelf. A faded college pennant hung over the desk. In the closet were boxes of things I had saved because I thought one day he might ask for them. At the bottom of one box was a note from when he was 9. Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house. I sat on the floor and laughed through sudden tears. That little boy had meant it. Somewhere along the way, he had become a man who believed my house was the solution to his problems. I kept the note, but I stopped living around it. The next morning I called Nora. I want you to come to Chicago. She laughed. I was wondering when you'd finally ask. She arrived 2 days later and immediately looked around the house. It hasn't changed. I have, she smiled. Good. We spent an afternoon going through closets. She found 3 dresses I had bought and never worn. You actually paid for these? Yes. Why didn't you wear them? They were too nice. For whom? I looked at her. For me, apparently. She made me try one on. It fit perfectly. In the mirror, I saw a woman who looked older than the woman I remembered, but somehow more alive. Thomas would have liked that, Nora said. I touched the sleeve. He always told me I worried too much about everyone else. He was right. That night, we talked over tea. Nora told me about her friends in Denver and the hiking group she had joined after retirement. I admitted I was ashamed that I had no life outside my family. You don't need to be ashamed of loving them, she said. You just need to stop letting them use that love against you. I wrote the sentence down. For the next few days, I made small changes. I replaced the kitchen curtains. I repaired the water stain on the ceiling. I fixed the loose railing on the stairs. None of it was extravagant, but every repair felt like a declaration. This was no longer a museum of the woman I used to be. It was my home. Then came more phone calls. Melissa said she was worried about my health. The next day, Daniel asked whether I had reconsidered paying Ethan's school expenses. When I refused, Melissa accused me of punishing innocent children. I answered calmly. Children should never be used as messengers in adult money problems. She hung up. On December 31st, the doorbell rang. Daniel stood outside with Melissa and Sophie. Daniel had a suitcase. There were more bags in the car. I understood immediately. They had packed as if my house were already theirs. They wanted Melissa to move in temporarily, she explained. She would cook, clean, and keep me company. Daniel would stay at their apartment with Ethan until they figured things out. I asked the only question that mattered. What would you contribute financially? Melissa looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at the floor. That silence answered me. They argued that I was old, that I needed supervision, that the house was too much for one person. I asked Daniel to name one bill of mine he had paid in the previous year. He couldn't. I asked Melissa to name the last Christmas she had spent with me before this confrontation. She couldn't. I asked why they had discussed selling my house after my death. Neither answered. Then Sophie spoke. Mom, can we stop fighting? Everyone went quiet. She looked at me. I don't like when everybody is angry. I knelt beside her. Neither do I. She hugged me. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was the first thing that had happened all day that felt completely real. When they finally left, Nora looked at me. How do you feel? I breathed out. Free, she smiled. That night, fireworks flashed over the city. I raised a glass of sparkling wine. To the life I postponed. Then I drank. January 1st passed quietly. On January 2nd, I went to the public library and signed up for a book club, a computer class, and a Saturday walking group. 2 days later, I attended the book club. A woman named Grace welcomed me. For 2 hours, strangers discussed a novel, recipes, memories, and the choices people make when they finally decide to live for themselves. Nobody asked me for money, nobody criticized my house, nobody treated me like a burden. Grace asked what I liked to do. I almost said, take care of my family. Instead, I said, I used to bake. I love old movies, I like photography, and I've always wanted to see New England in the fall. Grace smiled. Then you need a list. That night, I wrote 10 things I wanted to do. Visit Vermont in October. Learn to use my computer properly. Join the walking group. Bake for friends instead of people who expected it. See a play downtown. Visit Nora in Denver. Buy a winter coat without checking the price twice. Finish the books I kept postponing. Take more photographs. Forgive myself. The last one was the hardest. Daniel called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. He said he was worried about me. For years, those words would have sent me rushing back. This time, I simply listened. Then I deleted the message. Not because I hated him, because I no longer needed his attention to tell me whether I mattered. The following week, I started the computer class and joined the walking group. I went to a small theater alone. I learned how to video call Nora. I bought a new coat. I began taking photographs of winter trees. The city looked different when I wasn't moving through it with my eyes fixed on a phone, waiting for a message from someone who might need me. I was finally looking outward, and, for the first time, inward. One evening, Daniel called again. "Mom, the landlord raised our rent. We can't afford the increase." I listened quietly. "How much?" $300 a month. "You can move." "Ethan would have to change schools." "I know." "Mom, you're really going to let that happen?" I closed my eyes. There was a time when those words would have destroyed me. Instead, I remembered myself on the kitchen floor beside the broken photograph. I remembered the message about my death. I remembered the mortgage documents, the cleaning jobs, the thousands of transfers, the Christmas tables set for people who never arrived. "Daniel," I said, "you're 45 years old." "I know." "You have a wife, you have children, you're about to have another baby. You are responsible for the life you built." "But you're my mother." "Yes," I said, "and that is why I spent years helping you. But being your mother does not mean financing you forever." He was silent. Then he said, "I don't recognize you anymore." I smiled sadly. "I don't recognize the woman I used to be either." "Mom, please, we need this. You needed me for years. I needed you too. The difference is that when I needed you, I asked for your presence. When you needed me, you asked for my money. That isn't fair. It is the truth." He became angry. He said I was selfish. He said I was punishing the children. He said I would regret choosing myself. I let him finish. Then I said, "I regret not doing it sooner." The line went quiet. "Are you really done helping us?" "Yes." "And that's it?" "That is it." He hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and realized I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't waiting for him to call back. For the first time, his anger belonged to him. It didn't belong in my heart. A month later, I had become someone I barely recognized. Not because I had become younger, because I had stopped shrinking. I had paid off the mortgage. I had repaired the house. I had joined the book club and the walking group. I had learned enough about computers to video call Nora without asking anyone for help. I had gone to the theater twice. I had started keeping a camera in my purse. I had photographed the lake at sunrise, old brick buildings after snowfall, laughing couples in cafes, and children pulling sleds through the park. I had even bought a ticket to Denver for October. Nora said we'd drive into the mountains when the leaves changed. The ticket cost more than I would once have allowed myself to spend. I bought it anyway. Daniel and Melissa stopped calling regularly. Sometimes months went by. I didn't chase them. I didn't send money. I didn't send apologetic messages. I didn't ask whether they were angry. I heard through a distant relative that they had moved to a smaller apartment and taken the children out of private school. Part of me felt sad. Another part felt relief. Not because the children were struggling, because they were finally living inside the limits of their own choices. I still loved Ethan and Sophie. That never changed. But love no longer meant unlimited access to me. On my birthday, Sophie sent me a card. The handwriting was uneven. "Grandma, I hope you are happy. I like your house because it smells like cookies." I held that card for a long time. Then I wrote her back. I told her I loved her. I told her she could always write to me. And I told her something I wished someone had told me when I was young. Being loved does not mean you have to disappear for other people. I put the card in the drawer beside Thomas's photograph. Not beside Daniel's old promises. Beside the man who had loved me when I was simply Evelyn. On the following Christmas Eve, I woke at 6. The house was quiet. Snow rested along the windowsills. I walked into the kitchen. For a moment, I thought about the previous Christmas. The burned roast, the shattered frame, the phone call that had ended 3 decades of pretending. Then I opened the refrigerator. This time, I didn't have food for 6. I had bought ingredients for one beautiful meal: a small roast, potatoes, green beans, a pecan tart from the bakery. I set one plate on the table, one glass, one fork, one napkin. And instead of feeling abandoned, I felt honored. I had spent 33 Christmases setting the table for people who didn't come. Now I was setting it for the woman who finally had. Me. I turned on the music. I poured myself a glass of wine. Then I looked around the room. The old photographs were still there. The house still smelled faintly of cedar and cinnamon. The walls still carried the marks of children who had grown up and moved on. Nothing about the house had become perfect. But it was no longer sad. It was mine. I took my first bite and smiled. I had once believed that losing my family meant losing everything. Now I understood the truth. I had not lost everything. I had lost the version of my life where I had to earn love by paying for it. What I gained was harder and more valuable. I gained my name, my voice, my time, my home, my choices, and after 75 years, I finally gained myself. That Christmas Eve, I did not wait for the phone to ring. I did not check the driveway. I did not wonder whether anyone was coming. I simply ate my dinner while snow fell outside. And for the first time in 33 years, the empty chair across from me didn't represent rejection. It represented freedom.